Hi, my name is... well, my name isn't important, I guess. If I'm right, everyone will know the details soon. And if I'm wrong, it doesn't matter. Nobody will believe this without evidence. And if there is evidence, nobody will be able to deny it. So what I say ain't a hill of beans. But I need to say it. I work at a no-kill animal shelter, but it's not the kind you're thinking of. We're not doing pet adoptions or rehab. We're not a rescue. We're in a small town down south, middle of nowhere. We aren't a no-kill shelter because we don't want to kill the animals. We're a no-kill shelter because we can't kill them. The animals here just won't die. Or at least, they won't stay dead. We house animals that can't die. Near as I can tell, this started happening back in the 60s. Story goes, or at least the old-timer who had this job before me and taught me everything I know, claims that the local shelter, the regular old SPCA shelter, had a dog brought in one night. Dog had been hit by a car and was in bad shape. They were trying to get the emergency vet on the phone when the dog just comes back to life. But the dog was different. It could scurry up the side of the wall like a lizard. And then another. And another. Animals that both can't die and are not normal. You could take any animal here, pound it flat with a hammer until it was fur and powder, and within a day, it's back to normal. We don't understand it. Or at least, I don't. The old-timers around here are a superstitious bunch, and they say it's best not to think about it. But it happened more and more as time went on, so in the 1980s, the town decided they needed a place for them. There was this old abandoned factory, just outside of town. Had been a place that made big metal body frames for campers and trailers, I think someone said, that had closed in the late 60s. They gutted it, turned it into this shelter. We've got 138 animals as of this morning. All of them weird. All of them immortal. Some of them dangerous. It's mostly all your normal pet species. Cats, dogs, a ferret or two, a parrot, a few others. We've got a bunch of dog-sized runs, kind you would see in a normal shelter. Cages for cats, terrariums, aquariums, bird cages of all sizes. 6 guys work here. Most of the work goes on during the day, but we rotate through staying overnight. We've got dogs. Lots of dogs. We've got a Great Dane with 6 legs. Adorable, but he's clumsy as hell, tripping over himself. We love him though. There's a small mutt terrier mix we all call Gigi, who's got a tongue like one of those chameleon lizards. You can hold a dog treat out 8 feet from her, and she snatches it right out of your hand with it. That always gets a laugh. Lots of cats too. A tabby, we call Phoenix, is actually on the desk in the office while I'm recording this. Curled up, purring in the top of an old printer paper box, with a folded up towel in it asleep. She's hot to the touch. Not hot enough to burn you instantly like a stove burner. But I mean, you put your hand flat on her side, and it's so hot you'll have to pull it away after a few seconds. And I guess if you held her to someone's skin for 30 seconds or so, you'd give them a nasty burn. amazed she doesn't set stuff on fire as much as random stuff as she likes to sleep on. One of the many reasons we don't wear shorts on the job is because Phoenix likes rubbing up against people, and that's no fun with a bare leg. There's Bruce. Bruce is a common boa constrictor, about 6 feet long, actually pretty friendly as far as big snakes go. It doesn't cause us any issues, but god damn is he creepy. His ribs all just jut out from his body about 6 inches or so, and he walks around and climbs the walls of his enclosure with them, like a centipede, instead of slithering like a normal snake. I hate the scritch-scratch sound he makes when he's moving around. But as long as he has a warm UV lamp to bask under, and a thawed rabbit every couple of weeks, he's no problem at all. There's a flock of cockatiels, 14 of them, all the standard colours and patterns of them that you'd see in a pet store. We've got a nice big cage, the size of a large closet or small room for them. They all have an extra ridge of small feathers going down their back like a sail, and those feathers are sharp enough to cut you. They also drink blood like vampire bats. They sing pretty, though. Baron is a ferret, but he's almost 4 feet long. I mean, stretched out. He's regular ferret size as far as how big his head and limbs are, but his middle part between his back and front legs is just like 3 or 4 times as long as a regular ferret. He kills mice by construction like a snake. He regurgitates them back out like an hour or so later. We still have to feed him regular ferret food, but he gets cranky and bitey if we don't give him a mouse to eat every week or so. There's a fish tank, normal 60-gallon job we got from the PetSmart next town over. Got a bunch of those little fish that glow under UV light. Tetras, I think they're called. But these guys don't just glow. They leave these trails of light behind them as they swim around. And they don't need a UV light. They just glow all the time. One of the guys says he doesn't like to look at them. Says the light trails make his head feel funny. I think he's full of shit. But I make a habit of always looking away from them every few moments, if I'm working near them alone. No point in being stupid and taking a risk. So many more, each one weirder than the last. Some of the animals are dangerous. We've had incidents. Last fall, one of the guys was taking in a new animal. This one was a chinchilla. He broke protocol, picked it up without gloves before the observation period was complete. The little thing did this adorable little shake, like they do when they are in a dust bath. And about a dozen quills, like porcupines, just popped out of his body. 3 of them caught the guy right in the palm. Another one even went clear through his little finger. Dude's throat immediately started swelling up, like an allergic reaction. We tried the EpiPen from the first aid kit, but it didn't make no difference. We told his family he had been bitten by a rattlesnake. I don't think... Hell, I know they didn't believe us, but they didn't press the issue. The chinchilla is still here. If you just use your head, these animals are weird and can take you by surprise, but most of them aren't any more dangerous than handling a normal animal. So, most days are fine. Most days are fine, except the days when someone has to feed Omega. We don't even know what Omega is. We think he might be a horse, or used to be a horse. He's big. He's horse-sized. Quadruped and vaguely horse-shaped, but the front legs are longer than the back. And he's way more heavy-set than even a big draft horse. His head is horse-shaped, but the jaw opens way too wide, like a crocodile, and the teeth aren't for eating plants. Jet black. He has a mane, but the hair is wrong. It's thick and oily, and I swear nobody believes me. But if you watch closely, the hair can move on its own. He has his own run. We can't house him with any other animal. Luckily, he doesn't need to eat often. But we have a 2-man rule for feeding him. A bucket's worth of butcher meat, mixed with alfalfa and some dog food. He's very food aggressive. Hell, he's very everything aggressive. He's the only animal we have to feed by pushing a tray through a little slot in the bottom of his enclosure with a broom handle. The second person is on hand to pull you to safety in case anything goes wrong. We just hose his shit out of the enclosure. Nobody wants to go in there with him. We don't like it. We actually do try and treat the animals with respect. But nobody wants to get near Omega. Omega came here about 10 years back, a year or so before I started working here. But I've heard the story enough times from different people involved, and they all match up more or less. So, I reckon this is what happened. One night, about 11:30, Ricky, he's the fellow that runs the scrapyard and had the only decent tow truck in town, got a call from Cyrus. Now, Cyrus is this old fart. He would have already been about 65 by that point, who was the closest thing we had to a town bum. Cyrus was a constant in the town, always begging for money and winding up in jail for getting drunk and starting something. But, hell, he never meant no harm. Anyway, that night, Cyrus called Ricky from the payphone on the gas station on the edge of town. Said he needed the tow truck, which Ricky thought was weird, seeing as how Cyrus didn't have a car. Cyrus said an out-of-towner's car had started overheating on the freeway, and he had managed to limp the car to the next exit, not knowing the gas station had gone from 24 hours to only day shift months ago, but now it was dead, and wouldn't start. Ricky didn't even bother to ask what Cyrus was doing up there. Cyrus was one of those all-purpose bums, and one of the places he liked to sleep when no place else was available was out back of the old gas station. It was safe enough, and he could start begging for money and cigarettes early when the gas station opened. Ricky, when he tells this story, always includes the part about how he wished he had just let the phone ring that night, or just rolled over and went back to bed. But he could hear the rain drumming on the roof of the old mobile home he lived in right next to the scrapyard, and he couldn't bring himself to leave someone out in that. And hell, he knew he'd wind up bringing Cyrus back with him. Sure as shit. So, Ricky put on his big high-visibility rain jacket, cranked up his old International 4300, and started heading out to the gas station. He was halfway there, as he tells it, when for some reason he got on the radio and called the highway patrol, just telling him where he was headed and why. All the highway patrol guys, even the overnight dispatcher, knew Ricky well enough. He was the guy they called for wrecks most of the time. He got to the gas station just before midnight. Cyrus was there, sure enough talking the ear off of the guy. Sorry, I know I'm rambling, None of this really matters. I guess I just ain't in a hurry to get to where this story is going. Ricky got the guy's old Chevy Cavalier up on the flatbed, and him, the out-of-towner, and of course Cyrus, climbed into the towed truck's cab and headed back to town. There's a sharp blind curve coming back to town. Everyone in town knows about it. Ricky himself has been on site for wrecks and people skidding out into the ditch dozens of times. But that night, Ricky was tired, annoyed at Cyrus yakking his ear off. And when he came to that curve, and there was an animal in the headlights of his tow truck, combined with that slick road and the fact you can't exactly Tokyo drift in a tow truck with a full load. Well, whatever that animal was, he hit it at full speed, full force. Drug whatever it was, a quarter-mile down the road under the wheels of his truck. Ricky gave a cuss, put on the hazards, got out his flashlight, and got out to check the truck for damage. He was checking the back end, making sure the car was still secured, when he heard it. Ricky said it sounded like a cross between a gator bellowing and a mountain lion scream. He whipped his flashlight around, pointing it down the road. There, in the beam, was the crumpled heap of whatever animal he had hit. It was twitching, trying to lift itself up. Ricky had hit animals in the truck before. It was one of the hazards of the job. But the International weighed 30,000 pounds, and that's before you put another car on it. He could hit a goddamn elephant in that thing, and the animal would stay down. If this thing was still alive, it could only mean one thing. The thing that he would later name Omega lifted itself to its full height, its head almost level with Ricky's. And Ricky's a big dude. It made that terrible sound again. Then it looked at Ricky. Its eyes locked on him. And it growled. Ricky, who had driven an MRAP in Iraq for 2 tours, and once had a gun drawn on him by a guy who didn't appreciate that the bank had hired Ricky to repossess the Dodge Charger that this guy was 4 payments behind on, and just laughed in the guy's face, told him to call the bank with any complaints, and continued to load the guy's car, and drove off, leaving the guy standing there, pointing his gun at him. Pissed himself. Behind him, the door to the cab opened, and Cyrus stuck his head out. "What's taking so long, for Christ's sakes?" The old bum hollered. "Shut up, and get your ass back in the truck, and turn out the lights." Ricky, grit-teethed, whisper yelled back. He turned off his flashlight. He started to back away, slowly. It was a full moon, and he had enough light to keep the silhouette of the animal in his view, as he slowly backed down the length of the truck, back toward the cabin. The truck's light bar and hazard lights blinked off. At least Cyrus had enough sense to do what Ricky told him to. He grabbed the door handle, and in one motion opened it, pulled himself up into the cab, and closed it. Cyrus looked at him. "What the hell was that about?" Ricky gripped the steering wheel and took some deep breaths. "It's an animal," he said. Cyrus made a face. "Okay, and?" Ricky looked at Cyrus, but then caught the look of the out-of-towner, who was looking at the 2 locals like they were crazy. "Cyrus, it's one of those animals," Ricky said. That even shut Cyrus up. Ricky got on the radio.
I'm calling the sheriff.
The out-of-towner finally had enough. Okay, what is this all about? You two are acting really weird. What kind of animal did you hit? Ricky sighed. Sometimes us locals forget how weird this must be to outsiders.
Sir, I know this is weird. Trust me. Just hold tight.
On the radio, the voice of the dispatcher crackled back. Hey, Ricky. What's going on? What the hell are you even doing out this late? Ricky keyed the radio.
Yeah, Mike. I'm out at this bad dead man curve with Cyrus and a customer. I need help. I need you to wake the sheriff and at least one other guy. And better have him rouse a couple of the guys from the shelter on the way here.
The radio was silent for a few moments. Then Mike's voice, now serious, came back. Roger that, Ricky. You okay?
Yeah, Mike. We're okay, just get them out here quick, okay? Something about this one is giving me the creeps,
Ricky said. I'll get a rush on, Ricky. Stay safe.
Thanks, Mike.
Ricky put the radio headset back in the dash mount. Okay, what the fuck is all of this about? The out-of-towner demanded. Ricky swallowed hard.
Sir, I know this doesn't make any sense. There's a dangerous animal out there. The police and animal control will be here soon. Just stay put.
He looked in the rearview mirror. He couldn't see the animal. Somehow that made it worse. The out-of-towner was shaking his head. No. This is some kind of scam. You guys are trying to shake me down.
Sir, I assure you, nobody is
Ricky started to say, but the out-of-towner was already opening his door.
No!
Ricky yelled, but it was too late. The out-of-towner slammed the door and started walking down the road.
Goddamn idiot's gonna get his full self killed,
Cyrus said. Ricky reached down for the radio, intending to call Mike and tell him to put some extra hurry on getting someone out there. He keyed it, but nothing happened. He cursed. The truck was still off, and had turned off the accessory power after a few minutes to save it. He cranked the engine. When he did, the headlights turned back on. The out-of-towner had only made it a few 100 feet down the road, if that. He turned around when the lights turned on, his hand in front of his face. Behind him, maybe another few dozen yards down the road, Omega stepped out of the woods and onto the road. The out-of-towner, apparently still thinking he was being screwed with, shot them the finger and then turned back around. And then he screamed. It happened so fast. Ricky said ain't no right for something that big to move that fast. Omega bounded down the road, closing the distance in only a few steps, and cut the man down with one snap of those huge jaws. The man's torso was cut open from shoulder, diagonally down and across his entire open body, almost cleaving the man in two. Omega watched the man's body fall to the ground. He leaned down, sniffed it, and poked at it with his snout, and pawed at it with his front leg, then leaned down and pulled a big chunk of meat away from his body. Cyrus brought his hands to his mouth.
Oh, Jesus! Oh, Jesus! Jesus!
He repeated over and over. Ricky was fumbling with the radio. In the dark and panic, he hit the wrong button, and a loud squelch of high-pitched feedback blared from the radio. On the road, Omega's head snapped up.
Fuck! Oh, fuck!
Ricky said. Omega slowly stalked down the road, its attention now on the truck. Closer and closer it came. There was a terrible moment when it got close enough that Ricky and Cyrus couldn't see it over the huge hood of the truck. Then, with a single bound, the creature jumped on the hood, only the windshield between it and them. Both men screamed. Omega kicked at the glass, spiderwebbing it. What happened next happened very fast. Red and blue lights flooded the cabin. Omega turned his head, and then the shot rang out. Omega was blasted off the hood. Ricky looked over. A highway patrol cruiser was parked on the shoulder. The sheriff, an older gentleman with an old-school handlebar mustache, stood there, holding the big Mossberg shotgun, the one they used to stop high-speed chases. He racked it and leveled it again. He fired again, and again. Another officer took position behind the cruiser, his service pistol in hand. Another vehicle pulled up. Ricky recognized it as the old F-250 our shelter used at the time as a general-purpose vehicle. The sheriff held up a hand, telling them to stay in their vehicle. He walked up to Omega, who was on the ground twitching. He put the big barrel of the shotgun against the animal's ribs, directly over the animal's heart. He pulled the trigger. Omega jerked, once, and fell still. The sheriff stood there for several moments, watching for any movement. Then he waved the two guys from the shelter over.
You guys okay?
The sheriff yelled at the two men still huddled in the tow truck cab.
Yes, I think we're okay.
Ricky yelled back, knowing he was using a very limited definition of okay. The sheriff walked down the road, to the body. He looked down, took his hat off.
Jesus, Mary, and Joseph,
he muttered. Sorry, I got rambling again. I've heard this story so many times, it's hard to tell it without the parts I heard. The guys from the shelter, one of them was the old-timer who taught me, loaded Omega up on the truck. They knew they had to get him somewhere secure before he woke up again. Sheriff had just had the whole road closed off for the rest of the night. Called for another officer to drive Ricky home, and let Cyrus sleep at the station. Got the coroner out to collect the body. When morning came, they drove Ricky back to drive the tow truck back to the scrapyard. They wrote it up as a traffic accident. Official story was the driver just lost control on a rainy night and spun out on a well-known dangerous curve. Guy didn't have any close family, so nobody looked too deep into it. We kept Omega in an old shipping container for about a week. Couple of guys from the local metalworks made the run for Omega. It's heavy, high-security fencing, the kind they use to keep bears out of the shelters on the Appalachian Trail. Fully enclosed, set in concrete. Nobody even remembers exactly where the name Omega came from, but somebody called him that, and it stuck. Cyrus hit the bottle hard and drank himself to death about 3 or 4 years after that night. Ricky still owns the scrapyard, but he hired a new guy to do the actual tow truck driving. One of the 2 guys from the shelter. One of them stayed on until he died of cancer last year. That was the old guy who taught me. The other one tried to stay on, but couldn't be around Omega. He quit and moved out of state. I was his replacement. And I told you this story. Sitting here at the desk in the shared office, smoking through an entire pack of cigarettes so fast, I might as well have been eating them like candy. My hands are shaking. Because, you see, Omega's not in his run. It doesn't make any kind of sense. He was there when I checked on him at the start of my shift, and he's not there now. Me and one of the day shift guys gave him his dinner. Standard 2-man procedure like I talked about. No issues. Day shift guy went home. I checked the other animals. Fed some of them. And then I noticed Yertle walking around without his shell. Yertle's a Russian tortoise, but he actually can leave his shell, like the old wives' tale. So at least once a shift, you have to make sure Yertle hasn't wandered too far from his shell and forgot where it was. So, I did a quick loop around the building, finding Yertle's shell in front of the enclosure with the weird blue and gold macaw we have that has a toucan beak and a full-size lizard tail for some reason. And on the way back to the office, I checked on Omega, out of habit. And he wasn't there. The run was intact. No holes in the fence or broken latches on the door. No signs that somehow he had dug under the fence. Goddamn monster just up and vanished. I called the sheriff's office. Nobody answered. I think I can hear sirens in the distance. I'm scared. I'm scared of what that creature can do. Scared of what will happen to me if the town decides to blame me. But most of all, I'm scared of what will happen if Omega comes back. I hope you enjoyed the story. For more content, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Your support keeps the shadows dark. If you want more Sinister, links to my social media and Spotify can be found in the description, unless you're already there. Don't forget to sign up to the Patreon, where you can see all the content a day earlier, and an exclusive video every month once we hit 20 patrons. Until next time, keep your lights low, eyes open, and your doors locked.